Okay, so the findings for the Bocchiaro study. First of all, we look at the comparison group, which were those individuals who were asked what they thought they would do, not the experimental group who had to do what they said they would do. Only 3.6 said that they would obey the experimenter. Most believed that they would be disobedient and not write the statement for their friends, or they'd be whistleblowers and post that letter through to the research committee. Now that's a high number. That's a lot of people in this comparison group saying, I would be the hero, I would be the whistleblower. Okay. Unsurprisingly, when we look at the actual results, that's not what's found. So when asked to predict the behaviour of other typical students, they're not as generous as with themselves. So 18.8% thought that the average student would obey. So more people are obeying than themselves, they believe. And while they believe that most other students would either disobey, 43.9, or whistleblow, 37.3. So they're still saying overall that people are going to disobey. Okay, they're not actually accurately predicting what will actually happen. Which, if we look at the actual behavioural data of the experimental group of the 149 participants who were put through their paces, 76.5% obeyed the experimenter. That's 114. 14.1% disobeyed, which is 21 of them. So 14.1 didn't write the statement, and 14 of them, 19, which is 9.4, blew the whistle, so posted that form into the box. So we've got 114 who are writing that persuasive statement onto the PC for their friends to take part in this horrendous study. So it's a high number, 3/4 of them, and 14.1% disobeying, but very few blowing the whistle. So if you compare that with what people thought that they would do, then very different statement. Among the whistleblowers, 6% or 9 had written a message, so been anonymous whistleblowers, and 3.4% refused to do so, so were open whistleblowers. Alright, so 9 of them had put their message on the computer and then sneakily also put the form in. So they didn't want to confront the researcher by saying, I don't want to write a statement. Okay, they didn't want to raise their head above the parapet, but they anonymously would whistleblow. And 3.4% had refused to carry on, had refused to write a statement. Okay, just checking your literature that this number is n equals 14. There was a mistake on some of the literature saying it was 9, but this is 14. Okay, have a go at completing this. If you don't have it in front of you, you can draw it out. So using that data, you can complete the graphs between what people said they would do, or what the comparison group said they would do, and then what actually happened there, and that gives a nice little summary. So perhaps pause me and have a go at that graph now, just to summarize where we're up to. Okay. So you're looking at the differences between the predicted behaviour of what people predicted others would do and the actual behaviour of what the other group of students did. Okay, for the experimental group, there wasn't any significant differences found in relation to gender or religious affiliation or religious involvement. Okay, in terms that it was defined as whether they attended church. However, there was a significant difference observed with regard to faith, so defined as a confident belief in a transcendent reality, whether that was a god or something else. I don't know, but yeah, there was a significant outcome with that, p equals 0.03, but the researchers do point out that can be misleading, that they don't think the data was strong enough to say that accurately. They said it's more appropriate to talk of a trend, suggesting that whistleblowers have more faith than did obedient and disobedient participants. Okay, so that's perhaps the better way to talk about it, is there's a trend to do with faith. But they did find that significant outcome. But if a researcher's, saying, well, hang on, don't get too carried away with that, then you probably shouldn't. Okay. This is that Hexaco personality inventory I was talking about. You can do it online if you Google the Hexaco personality. You get a load of questions like this. 100 questions. I think that paying attention to radical ideas is a waste of time. strongly agree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And then it gives you an outcome at the end of those 100 of where you are. So this is my outcome. I've not shown you the most negative ones of mine, but fairness. That's where most people are, but I'm actually far more fair than the average because my dot is up there. I avoid greed quite a lot, and that either means I'm very modest or I'm not modest at all. I'm not too sure. I'm extremely fearful though, so there you go. That gives something away. So that's how they are measuring people and figuring out where they all are on the scale, whether any of the whistleblowers were particularly on one end of the scale on any of these items. And so you don't need to learn this table for the exam, but this is from the article, from the original article, and it shows how they compared it, group mean score and standard deviation on 6 of the dimensions. So honesty and humility, they're getting a score 3.35 as a mean. The reason why it's 3.35 is you're getting marked out of 5 on it. Okay, that depends on which one of these you click. So as a mean, obedient participants were coming out as that, disobedient participants were coming out slightly higher, and whistleblowers slightly lower. So that's how they worked out whether faith had an impact, or at least a belief in a transcendental reality. Okay, so that's how they're comparing these personalities. But the main thing from all of that is that actually, on the whole, these individual personality characteristics didn't have an impact on whether they were obedient, disobedient, or a whistleblower. That's an important statement, because what we're saying is it largely depends on the situation you're in. There's no predictive ability. If you're brought up in a religious household, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to obey. You might still obey. So, overall conclusions of the research then: people tend to obey authority figures even if the authority is unjust. How people think, or what people say they and others will do in a given situation, often differs from what actually happens. Okay, so our internal cognitive processes, how we think we will behave and we want to appear good, often differs from our outward pervasive power of the situational force. Okay, in other words, we might say we wouldn't go along with the Nazis if we'd have lived in Nazi Germany, but actually the power of the situation can be much greater than we think. Individuals behave in completely different ways than expected when they find themselves in certain circumstances that are unfamiliar and somewhat extreme. There's a bit of a dig here from the researchers that is saying basically all of that research since the 60s and 70s have been scenario studies that get people that asks people what they would do, and they're saying all that research isn't worth the paper that it's written on, because what people say they would do and what they actually do is extremely different. Okay. Final couple of conclusions. Behavioural acts of disobedience and whistleblowing are psychologically, socially and economically demanding for people, notably whistleblowers. So it is demanding, it's a psychologically demanding thing for people to step forward and whistleblow. And they're making this argument that economically demanding. If I'm unhappy with my boss, am I really likely to blow the whistle because I'm going to lose my job potentially? So it's a huge thing to expect people to whistleblow. Behaving in a moral manner is challenging for people, okay, even when the reaction appears to observers to be the simplest path. Even though it seems like the most honest, simple path to take, it is challenging. It's a moral maze for us. With regard to faith, there appears to be a trend suggesting whistleblowers have more faith than either obedient or disobedient individuals, but they're still calling it a trend rather than a significant outcome. So there you go. Conclusions are done, results are done. Go back and summarize it all and revise it. Okay, thanks everybody.